23 black celebrities who secretly had plastic surgery you didn't know about. What if some of the biggest black legends in music changed their faces not because they wanted to, but because Hollywood quietly told them they had to? From Michael Jackson to Diana Ross, from Whitney Houston to Lil' Kim, these stars dominated the world with talent. Yet behind the fame was a painful battle with beauty standards, public pressure, and fear of growing older in front of millions. Some transformations shocked fans. Others sparked heartbreak and controversy that still hasn't faded today. But the deeper truth may be even more disturbing than the surgeries themselves. Did the entertainment industry slowly erase the very features that once made these icons unique? Stay until the end and decide for yourself. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your opinion below with Remembered Lives channel. Michael Jackson. There was a time when the world looked at Michael Jackson and saw magic. A young black boy from Gary, Indiana, standing under bright stage lights with eyes full of innocence and a voice powerful enough to stop entire arenas in silence. But as the years passed, the same world that once celebrated him began watching his every movement with relentless obsession. And nowhere was that scrutiny more brutal than on his face. Michael's transformation became one of the most discussed celebrity stories in modern history. After suffering a serious scalp injury during a 1984 Pepsi commercial accident, he underwent reconstructive procedures connected to burns and pain treatment. Michael himself publicly admitted to having rhinoplasty and later spoke openly about living with vitiligo, the skin condition confirmed after his death in the 2009 autopsy report. Yet the media rarely approached his appearance with compassion. Instead, tabloids turned his changing features into entertainment. By the late 1980s, after the release of Bad, audiences noticed sharper facial contours, a narrower nose, and lighter skin. Rumors exploded worldwide. Some accused him of rejecting his identity, while others believed he had become trapped in an impossible cycle of perfectionism created by fame. What many forget is that Michael spent his childhood hearing painful criticism about his appearance, including comments from his own father. Those wounds followed him long after the Jackson 5 era ended. And despite everything, the music never lost its emotional power. Thriller sold over 70 million copies worldwide. Billie Jean, Man in the Mirror, and Earth Song still move generations decades later. Beneath the surgeries, speculation, and headlines was a man carrying extraordinary loneliness while trying to remain extraordinary for the world. Perhaps that is the tragedy of Michael Jackson. The more iconic he became, the less human people allowed him to be. Yet, when the music plays, the noise disappears for a moment, and somewhere behind the fame, you can still hear the little boy who only wanted to sing, dance, and be loved without conditions. Diana Ross. Long before social media beauty influencers or Hollywood image consultants dominated entertainment, Diana Ross had already become the definition of elegance. Rising from Detroit with the Supremes in the 1960s, she helped change American music forever. The group earned 12 #1 Billboard hits, making them one of the most successful female groups in history. But Diana was never just a singer. She became a symbol of glamour, sophistication, and black excellence during a time when opportunities for black women in mainstream entertainment were still painfully limited. Yet fame at that level came with relentless pressure. As the decades passed, fans began noticing subtle changes in Diana Ross's appearance. Her skin appeared smoother, her facial structure more refined, and her overall look seemed increasingly polished with age. Rumors about cosmetic procedures followed her for years, though Diana herself rarely addressed them publicly. Unlike many celebrities who defended or denied every headline, she chose privacy and silence, allowing the public to speculate while she continued performing. But reducing Diana Ross to conversations about beauty misses the larger story entirely. She survived an industry obsessed with youth for more than half a century. Few artists remain relevant across 6 different decades, yet Diana continued selling out concerts well into her 70s. That level of longevity requires enormous discipline, sacrifice, and emotional endurance. Behind the glamorous gowns and dazzling stage lights was also a woman carrying the burden of always needing to appear timeless. Hollywood often celebrates aging men while quietly pushing aging women aside. For Black female entertainers, those expectations can feel even harsher. Every wrinkle becomes a headline. Every change becomes a debate. And still, Diana Ross endured with grace. Perhaps that is why older generations continue to admire her so deeply. Not because she looked perfect, but because she represented resilience. Through changing trends, public scrutiny, and decades of pressure, she never allowed the world to erase her presence. Beneath the fame remained the same determined young woman from Detroit who dreamed bigger than the limits society tried to place around her. Lil' Kim. When Lil' Kim first entered hip-hop in the 1990s, she changed the entire energy of female rap. Loud, glamorous, fearless, and unapologetically confident, she quickly became one of the most unforgettable women in music. Standing beside the notorious B.I.G. and later dominating the charts with albums like Hardcore, Lil' Kim built an image that felt larger than life. But behind the designer outfits, expensive jewelry, and bold attitude was a woman carrying deep emotional scars. Over the years, the public became increasingly focused on her changing appearance. Fans noticed lighter skin, sharper facial features, and dramatic cosmetic transformations. The internet turned every new photo into a debate. Instead of celebrating her influence on hip-hop, many people reduced her legacy to headlines about surgery and beauty standards. But the truth behind those changes was far more painful than gossip magazines ever admitted. Lil' Kim later revealed that years of emotional abuse and criticism damaged her self-esteem. Even while becoming a rap superstar, she was constantly compared to other women and criticized for not fitting traditional beauty ideals. In an industry obsessed with appearance, the pressure slowly became overwhelming. Yet her impact on music never faded. She helped open doors for generations of female rappers who came after her. Artists like Nicki Minaj and Cardi B inherited a lane Lil' Kim helped create through raw confidence and fearless individuality. Perhaps the saddest part of her story is not that her face changed, but that the world often made her feel she needed to change at all. Behind the surgeries and speculation was still the same ambitious woman from Brooklyn who fought to survive an industry that rarely showed mercy. And for many longtime fans, the real Lil' Kim was never just about beauty. It was always about power, attitude, and the courage to stand out when nobody else dared to. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston did not simply become famous. She became a symbol of perfection. With her extraordinary voice, elegant beauty, and emotional performances, she captured the hearts of millions around the world. By the late 1980s, songs like Greatest Love of All and I Wanna Dance with Somebody had transformed her into one of the biggest stars on earth. But behind that polished image was a woman carrying unimaginable pressure. As Whitney's fame grew, so did public obsession with her appearance. Over the years, fans noticed subtle facial changes, including a more refined nose and smoother features. Rumors about cosmetic procedures followed her constantly, though Whitney rarely addressed them publicly. Instead, she focused on performing while trying to survive the enormous expectations placed on her career and personal life. The entertainment industry demanded that Whitney always appear flawless. She was expected to sing perfectly, look beautiful, smile through interviews, and remain graceful, no matter what struggles she faced privately. Meanwhile, rumors about addiction, marriage problems, and declining health slowly overshadowed her music. Still, her talent remained undeniable. Her performance of I Will Always Love You became one of the best-selling singles in history, while The Bodyguard helped cement her legacy as both a singer and actress. Even during difficult years, Whitney could still deliver moments of breathtaking emotional power on stage. When she passed away in 2012 at only 48 years old, the world mourned far more than a celebrity. People mourned a woman who spent decades trying to live up to impossible expectations. Looking back now, many fans realize Whitney's true beauty was never about perfection. It was the emotion in her voice, the vulnerability in her eyes, and the humanity she fought so hard to protect beneath the spotlight. Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson spent her entire life living beneath one of the most famous last names in entertainment history. From childhood, the world compared her to her brothers, especially Michael Jackson. But instead of disappearing behind the enormous shadow of the Jackson family legacy, Janet built something extraordinary on her own. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, albums like Control and Rhythm Nation 1814 transformed her into a global superstar with a voice and identity completely her own. Still, fame came with intense scrutiny. As Janet's career evolved, fans began noticing changes in her appearance. Her nose appeared slimmer, her jawline softer, and her facial features more refined over time. Rumors about cosmetic procedures followed her for decades, though Janet rarely discussed them publicly. Unlike many celebrities who constantly answered tabloids, she remained guarded, choosing to focus attention on her music, choreography, and performances instead. What made Janet different was her vulnerability. Beneath the glamorous image was a woman who openly spoke about struggles with self-esteem, body image, and emotional pressure. In interviews and documentaries, she revealed how painful criticism about her appearance had affected her confidence from a young age. Growing up in the entertainment industry meant constantly being judged, not only as an artist, but as a woman, expected to remain flawless in front of cameras forever. Yet Janet's legacy became much bigger than appearance. She sold over 100 million records worldwide and became one of the most influential female performers of all time. Her music addressed social injustice, relationships, mental health, and personal independence in ways that connected deeply with audiences across generations. Perhaps that is why many longtime fans still feel emotionally connected to her today. Behind every transformation was not vanity, but survival in an industry that rarely allowed women to age naturally or privately. And despite decades of pressure, Janet Jackson never lost the quiet strength that made her unique from the very beginning. Jermaine Jackson. Before the world became fascinated with the changing faces of the Jackson family, Jermaine Jackson was known for something much simpler: charm. During the early Jackson 5 years, Jermaine stood out with his smooth voice, calm personality, and effortless confidence. While Michael became the breakout star, Jermaine remained an important part of the group's success, helping create timeless hits that shaped Motown history forever. But as the decades passed, public attention slowly shifted away from his music and toward his appearance. Fans began noticing dramatic changes in Jermaine's facial features over the years. His nose looked narrower, his skin appeared tighter, and his facial structure became increasingly sculpted. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, rumors about cosmetic surgery surrounded nearly every public appearance he made. Photographs comparing his younger years to later interviews spread constantly across tabloids and entertainment television. Unlike some celebrities, Jermaine rarely addressed the speculation directly. He continued appearing at performances, family events, and interviews while the public quietly debated how much he had changed. For many observers, his transformation became symbolic of the enormous pressure attached to being part of the Jackson family, a family constantly placed under impossible expectations by fame, media attention, and public judgment. Yet behind those headlines was still a talented artist with a long career in music. Jermaine achieved solo success with songs like Do What You Do and remained deeply connected to the Jackson musical legacy for decades. But the entertainment industry can be cruel, especially toward aging celebrities whose images were once tied so closely to youth and beauty. Perhaps the saddest part of Jermaine's story is how often people forgot the music itself. Instead of remembering the smooth Motown vocals and emotional performances, many focused only on appearance. And maybe that says more about society than it does about him. Because behind every altered photograph was still the same young man who once stood beside his brothers, singing his heart out before the entire world knew their names. Tina Turner. Tina Turner never needed perfection to become unforgettable. Long before conversations about cosmetic surgery or aging in Hollywood became common, Tina had already survived more pain than most people could imagine. From the abuse she endured during her marriage to Ike Turner to rebuilding her career almost completely alone in her 40s, Tina's life became one of the greatest comeback stories in music history. By the 1980s, she was no longer just a singer. She was a symbol of survival. But even legends are not immune to the pressure of appearance. As Tina continued performing into her 50s and 60s, fans noticed subtle changes in her face, particularly around her eyes. Tina herself once admitted to having minor eyelid surgery, explaining that stage lighting no longer hit her face the same way it once had. It was not presented as vanity, but as part of remaining camera-ready during exhausting tours and performances. What makes Tina's story different is that her power never came from looking flawless. It came from the energy she carried on stage. Songs like What's Love Got to Do With It and The Best were filled with emotion because audiences believed every word she sang. Her voice sounded lived in, wounded, and triumphant all at once. Still, the entertainment industry rarely allows women to age peacefully. Even someone as respected as Tina Turner faced silent expectations to remain youthful under bright lights and television cameras. Yet she handled that pressure with dignity, never allowing public opinion to define her worth. When Tina Turner passed away in 2023 at age 83, the world did not remember rumors about cosmetic procedures. People remembered resilience. They remembered strength. And above all, they remembered a woman who turned pain into power and walked through every chapter of her life with unmatched courage. Donna Summer. Donna Summer was more than the queen of disco. During the late 1970s, she became the soundtrack of an entire generation. With songs like Hot Stuff, Last Dance, and Bad Girls, Donna dominated radio stations, dance floors, and concert arenas around the world. Her voice carried glamour, confidence, and excitement during an era when disco music ruled popular culture. But fame in the music industry often comes with invisible pressure. As Donna's career continued into the 1980s and 1990s, audiences began noticing changes in her appearance. Her facial features appeared more refined, her cheek structure sharper, and her overall image increasingly polished. Rumors about cosmetic surgery quietly followed her public appearances for years, though Donna never openly focused attention on those conversations. Instead, she continued performing while adapting to an entertainment business constantly obsessed with youth and reinvention. Unlike many artists from the disco era who disappeared completely, Donna fought to remain relevant through changing musical trends. That pressure affected nearly every aspect of celebrity life, especially for women growing older in front of cameras. Hollywood often demanded impossible standards. Stay beautiful, stay youthful, stay marketable, no matter the emotional cost. Yet behind the glamorous image remained a deeply talented vocalist whose influence stretched far beyond disco. Donna Summer won 5 Grammy Awards and became the first artist to have 3 consecutive double albums reach #1 on the Billboard charts. Her music blended dance, soul, pop, and emotional storytelling in ways that still inspire artists today. When Donna passed away in 2012 at age 63, fans remembered far more than changes in appearance. They remembered the energy in her voice and the joy she brought to millions. Because in the end, Donna Summer's true legacy was never about how she looked. It was about how her music made people feel alive. Lionel Richie. Few artists have mastered warmth and romance the way Lionel Richie did. Throughout the 1980s, his voice became part of everyday life for millions of people around the world. Songs like Hello, Endless Love, and All Night Long transformed him into one of the most successful singers of his generation. Calm, charismatic, and effortlessly charming, Lionel represented a softer side of stardom that audiences deeply trusted. But as the years passed, public attention slowly shifted towards something unexpected: his seemingly ageless appearance. By the early 2000s, fans began commenting on how little Lionel Richie appeared to age. His skin looked unusually smooth, his facial features tighter, and his smile almost unchanged from decades earlier. Rumors about Botox facelifts and cosmetic treatments quickly spread across tabloids and entertainment programs. Lionel himself responded to some of the speculation with humor, once joking that if celebrities age naturally, people call them old. But if they maintain their appearance, people accuse them of looking fake. Behind those jokes, however, was a deeper truth about the entertainment industry. Male celebrities may face less pressure than women, but aging in public still comes with enormous scrutiny. For performers whose image became tied to romance and charm, staying youthful can feel connected to staying relevant. Still, Lionel Richie's career survived because of talent, not appearance. He sold more than 100 million records worldwide, won multiple Grammy Awards, and helped shape the sound of pop and R&B for decades. Even now, audiences continue attending his concerts, not because his face looks young, but because his music carries memories people never forgot. Perhaps that is why Lionel remains beloved after all these years. Beneath the speculation and public commentary is still the same man whose voice once made listeners feel hopeful, comforted, and understood. And sometimes that emotional connection matters far more than age ever will. Patti LaBelle. Patti LaBelle never needed controversy to command attention. The moment she stepped onto a stage, audiences felt it instantly. The voice, the emotion, the power. From her early days with Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells to timeless solo classics like If Only You Knew and New Attitude, Patti became one of the most respected vocalists in American music history. Her performances were never simply concerts. They were emotional experiences filled with passion, heartbreak, and raw honesty. But even legendary women are not protected from Hollywood's impossible beauty standards. As Patti grew older in the public eye, fans began noticing subtle changes in her appearance, especially around her eyes and facial features. Unlike many celebrities, Patti openly admitted to undergoing eyelid surgery, explaining that the procedure was partly connected to her vision and appearance under harsh stage lighting. Yet, public reaction quickly became divided. Some people defended her decision, while others claimed she no longer looked like the Patti they remembered from the 1970s and 1980s. Still, Patti never allowed those conversations to define her. What made audiences love her was never flawless skin or youthful features. It was vulnerability. When Patti sang, people believed every lyric because she carried real emotion into every performance. That emotional honesty helped her remain relevant for decades, while many artists faded away. Behind the glamorous gowns and dramatic stage presence was also a woman navigating an entertainment industry terrified of aging. Female performers, especially Black women, were constantly pressured to remain youthful, no matter how many years passed. Patti survived those expectations while continuing to perform well into her 70s, and perhaps that is why so many fans still admire her today. Not because she stayed unchanged, but because she never lost the spirit that made her unforgettable in the first place. Beneath every spotlight remained the same powerful woman whose voice could still silence an entire room within seconds. Natalie Cole. Natalie Cole spent much of her life carrying one of the heaviest legacies in music history. As the daughter of Nat King Cole, she entered the entertainment world already surrounded by enormous expectations. Audiences did not simply want Natalie to succeed. Many expected her to recreate the magic of her father. Yet over time, she fought hard to build an identity entirely her own. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, Natalie had become a major star through songs like This Will Be and Inseparable. Her voice blended sophistication with warmth, helping her stand apart from other singers of her era. But while her career flourished publicly, privately, she battled addiction, emotional pressure, and constant media scrutiny. As years passed, fans noticed changes in Natalie's appearance. Her nose appeared slimmer, her facial structure more refined, and her overall image increasingly polished. Rumors about cosmetic procedures followed her for years, though Natalie rarely addressed those conversations directly. Much of the attention placed on her appearance reflected the larger pressure female celebrities faced in maintaining perfection while aging in public. Yet Natalie's story was always deeper than appearance. In the 1990s, she achieved one of the most emotional moments in music history with Unforgettable, the virtual duet created with her late father. The album sold millions of copies and won multiple Grammy Awards, reconnecting audiences with both her talent and her humanity. When Natalie Cole passed away in 2015 at age 65, many fans looked back with sadness at how often the world focused on superficial changes instead of her extraordinary resilience. Because behind the glamorous image was a woman constantly trying to balance legacy fame and personal healing. And through it all, her voice never lost the emotional sincerity that made listeners fall in love with her music in the first place. Tamar Braxton. Tamar Braxton grew up surrounded by music talent and ambition. As the younger sister of Toni Braxton, she entered the entertainment world with enormous expectations already attached to her family name. But Tamar quickly proved she had something different, a bold personality, powerful vocals, and a fearless attitude that made her impossible to ignore. Whether through reality television or songs like Love and War, she built a career that combined emotional vulnerability with modern celebrity culture. At the same time, life in the spotlight brought relentless criticism. Over the years, Tamar became increasingly open about cosmetic procedures and beauty enhancements. Unlike older generations of celebrities who avoided the topic completely, Tamar often addressed image changes more directly, acknowledging surgeries and discussing the pressure women face in entertainment. Fans noticed changes in her facial structure, nose, and overall appearance, sparking constant online debate about beauty standards and self-image. What separates Tamar's story from many older stars is the era she lived through. Social media magnified every photograph, every interview, and every perceived flaw. Modern celebrity culture became brutally unforgiving, especially toward women. One viral image could generate thousands of cruel comments within hours. Tamar frequently spoke about the emotional damage caused by public criticism, mental health struggles, and the pressure to appear perfect at all times. Yet behind the headlines remained a genuinely talented performer. Her vocal ability earned widespread respect in R&B circles, while her honesty about depression, heartbreak, and anxiety made many fans feel deeply connected to her story. Unlike celebrities who tried to appear untouchable, Tamar often showed her emotional scars publicly. Perhaps that honesty is why audiences continue rooting for her. Because beneath the glamour, surgeries, and reality television fame is still a woman trying to protect her confidence in an industry that constantly tears women apart. And in many ways, that struggle feels painfully human. Smokey Robinson. Few voices in music history sound as smooth and timeless as Smokey Robinson's. As the founder of The Miracles and one of Motown's greatest songwriters, Smokey helped shape the sound of American soul music forever. Classics like Tracks of My Tears, Cruisin', and Being With You turned him into one of the most beloved artists of his generation. His voice carried tenderness, romance, and emotional honesty in a way few singers could ever match. But as the years passed, public attention slowly shifted away from the music and toward his appearance. Fans began noticing that Smokey Robinson looked unusually youthful for his age. His skin appeared tighter, his facial expressions smoother, and his features increasingly refined during television appearances and concerts. Rumors about facelifts, Botox, and cosmetic procedures quickly followed him throughout the 2000s and beyond. Though Smokey rarely spoke directly about those conversations, speculation continued growing each time he appeared in public. Yet behind those rumors remained a much larger truth about aging in entertainment. For artists whose faces become deeply connected to nostalgia and romance, growing older under constant public attention can become emotionally difficult. Audiences often want their icons frozen in time, forever looking the way they did during their most famous years. Still, Smokey Robinson's legacy was never built on appearance alone. He wrote or co-wrote countless Motown hits and helped launch the careers of other legendary performers. His influence on soul and R&B music remains enormous, even decades later. Perhaps that is why longtime fans still admire him so deeply. Because when Smokey sings, people are reminded not of cosmetic rumors or changing features, but of memories. First dances, old relationships, heartbreak, and youth, all come rushing back through his music. And in the end, that emotional connection is far more powerful than age or appearance could ever be. Grace Jones. Grace Jones never tried to fit into Hollywood beauty standards. She shattered them completely. From the late 1970s onward, Grace became one of the boldest and most visually unforgettable women in entertainment. With her sharp features, striking bone structure, and fearless fashion choices, she transformed herself into a living work of art. Singer, actress, model, and cultural icon Grace Jones built an image so unique that audiences often did not know whether to fear her, admire her, or both at the same time. Unlike many celebrities discussed for cosmetic transformations, Grace's evolution felt more artistic than surgical. Over the years, her appearance constantly changed through dramatic styling, makeup, photography, and avant-garde fashion. Rumors occasionally surrounded possible cosmetic procedures, but what truly fascinated people was her ability to reinvent herself without losing her identity. She refused to soften her image to make others comfortable. That rebellion became her power. During an era when Black women were often pressured to appear traditionally feminine and approachable, Grace embraced androgyny, intensity, and mystery. She challenged beauty standards head-on, becoming a fashion and music symbol whose influence stretched far beyond disco and new wave music. Designers, photographers, and younger artists viewed her as decades ahead of her time. Yet behind the fearless image was also a woman navigating an industry uncomfortable with difference. Grace Jones succeeded not because she followed Hollywood rules, but because she refused to obey them. That refusal sometimes made her controversial, but it also made her unforgettable. Perhaps that is why conversations about her appearance feel different from other celebrities. Grace Jones never seemed desperate to look younger or more accepted. Instead, she transformed herself into something entirely her own. And even now, her image remains one of the most daring examples of individuality in entertainment history. Melba Moore. Melba Moore possessed the kind of voice that could fill a theater with emotion in seconds. Rising to fame through Broadway before becoming a successful R&B singer, she earned respect for both her vocal talent and stage presence during the 1970s and 1980s. Songs like Love's Comin' At Ya and Lean On Me showcased a performer capable of blending power, elegance, and vulnerability all at once. But behind the applause existed a quieter struggle that many Black female entertainers faced during that era: the pressure to fit Hollywood's narrow beauty standards. Throughout her career, rumors circulated that Melba Moore altered aspects of her appearance, particularly her nose, after being told she lacked the right look for mainstream television. While many details were exaggerated over time through gossip and entertainment media, the larger issue reflected a very real problem within the industry. Black women were frequently pushed to soften or refine their natural features to appear more commercially acceptable. For Melba, those expectations arrived during a period when television and music executives controlled nearly every aspect of an artist's image. Talent alone was often not enough. Appearance could determine who received opportunities and who remained invisible. Yet Melba Moore's legacy endured because of resilience. She survived career setbacks, financial hardship, and changing trends in entertainment, while continuing to perform for loyal audiences. Her Broadway success, including winning a Tony Award for Pearly, proved that her artistry could never be reduced to appearance alone. Perhaps that is why older fans still speak about her with such affection. Beneath the glamour and public speculation remained a woman whose voice carried genuine soul. And even after decades in the spotlight, many people still remember not the rumors or changing features, but the emotional honesty she brought into every performance. Billy Preston. Billy Preston was the kind of musician who could transform an entire song with just a few notes. Nicknamed the Fifth Beatle for his work alongside the Beatles, Billy brought soul energy and spiritual emotion into every performance. Whether playing the keyboard on Get Back or delivering his own hits like Nothing from Nothing and Will It Go Round in Circles, he became one of the most respected musicians of the 1970s. But behind the infectious smile and joyful stage presence was a man carrying deep personal struggles. In 1972, Billy Preston survived a serious car accident that reportedly left visible injuries to his face. After spending months away from the spotlight, fans noticed his appearance looked different when he returned to performing. His facial features appeared sharper, his nose narrower, and rumors quickly spread about reconstructive or cosmetic procedures. Billy rarely addressed those conversations publicly, leaving much of the speculation unanswered. Yet the greater tragedy of Billy Preston's story had little to do with appearance. Throughout his life, he struggled with addiction, loneliness, and the pressure of living inside an industry that often demanded performers hide parts of themselves to remain accepted. For many Black artists during that era, image became tightly connected to survival. Still, Billy's musical brilliance never disappeared. His keyboard playing added emotional depth to countless legendary recordings, and his gospel-influenced sound gave his music warmth that audiences still feel decades later. Even today, musicians across genres continue studying his work, because few performers could blend funk, soul, rock, and spirituality as naturally as he did. Perhaps that is why Billy Preston remains unforgettable. Not because people debated how his face changed, but because his music always sounded deeply human. Behind every performance was a man trying to find peace while carrying pain most audiences never fully saw. Millie Jackson. Millie Jackson never sounded like anyone else. Bold, fearless, hilarious, and brutally honest, she built a career by saying the things other singers were too afraid to say out loud. During the 1970s and 1980s, Millie became famous for mixing soul music with sharp storytelling, raw emotion, and unapologetic attitude. Songs like "Hurt So Good" and her legendary live performances turned her into one of the most unforgettable personalities in R&B history. But fame came with constant criticism. Unlike many female stars of her era, Millie Jackson refused to present herself as soft or delicate. She embraced confidence, sexuality, and outspoken honesty in ways that made the music industry uncomfortable. Critics often attacked not only her personality, but also her appearance. Over time, fans began noticing changes in her facial features, especially around her cheeks and jawline, leading to rumors about cosmetic surgery and beauty enhancements. Yet what made Millie's story emotional was the contradiction behind it all. She spent years challenging society's standards while simultaneously living inside an industry obsessed with appearance. Even strong personalities are not immune to insecurity when criticism becomes constant. Still, Millie Jackson's legacy survived because authenticity cannot be manufactured. Her music felt real. Her humor felt real. Even her anger felt real. Audiences connected to her because she sounded like someone unafraid to speak painful truths about relationships, heartbreak, and survival. Perhaps that is why many longtime fans still admire her today. Beneath the rumors and changing image remained the same rebellious spirit that made her different from everyone else in the first place. And in an industry filled with carefully controlled personalities, Millie Jackson's raw honesty became her greatest strength. Prince. Prince was never meant to fit inside ordinary expectations. From the moment he appeared in the late 1970s, he created a world entirely his own, mysterious, seductive, emotional, and impossible to imitate. With classics like Purple Rain, When Doves Cry, and Kiss, Prince became one of the most influential musicians in modern history, blending funk, rock, soul, and pop into a sound that changed music forever. But alongside the genius came endless fascination with his appearance. As the years passed, fans noticed subtle but visible changes in Prince's face. His nose appeared narrower, his jawline sharper, and his overall look increasingly refined. Rumors about cosmetic procedures quietly followed him throughout his career, though Prince almost never addressed personal speculation publicly. He preferred mystery over explanation, allowing the music to remain the center of attention. What made Prince different from many celebrities was that his image itself became part of his artistic expression. Through makeup, fashion, hairstyles, and carefully crafted performances, he constantly reinvented how masculinity, beauty, and identity could look in entertainment. At a time when the industry often demanded conformity, Prince created his own rules entirely. Yet behind the confidence was also enormous pressure. Fame turned him into a symbol rather than simply a human being. Audiences expected him to remain eternally youthful, creative, and unforgettable. For artists whose identity becomes deeply tied to image, aging under public attention can become emotionally exhausting. Still, Prince's true legacy was never about appearance. It was about artistic freedom. He wrote, produced, arranged, and performed music at a level few entertainers could ever reach. Even decades later, younger musicians continue drawing inspiration from his creativity and fearlessness. When Prince passed away in 2016 at age 57, the world did not mourn cosmetic rumors or changing photographs. People mourned genius. They mourned originality. And above all, they mourned a man who dared to be completely different in a world terrified of individuality. Frida Payne. Frida Payne carried elegance in a way that felt effortless. Best known for her timeless hit Band of Gold, she became one of the defining voices of early 1970s soul music. With her sophisticated stage presence, smooth vocals, and emotional delivery, Frida stood apart from many artists of her era. She represented class, poise, and maturity during a period when soul music was rapidly evolving. But like many women in entertainment, she also faced quiet pressure about aging and appearance. As Frida Payne grew older in the public eye, fans noticed subtle changes in her look, particularly around her neck and facial structure. Rumors about cosmetic procedures followed her for years, though Frida herself rarely discussed them publicly. Unlike younger celebrities raised in the era of social media, performers from Frida's generation often protected their private struggles behind elegance and professionalism. What makes her story meaningful is how deeply Hollywood feared visible aging in women. Female performers were expected to appear timeless no matter how many years passed. Wrinkles, changes in skin, or natural aging often became unfairly connected to losing relevance. For Black female entertainers, that pressure could feel even more isolating. Yet Frida Payne's career endured because audiences respected far more than her appearance. Her voice carried emotional richness and maturity that younger artists often lacked. She also expanded into acting and theater, proving her talent stretched far beyond one hit record. Perhaps that is why many longtime fans still remember her so fondly today. Beneath the glamorous image and public speculation remained a woman who carried herself with grace through decades of change. And even now, when people hear Band of Gold, they are reminded not of rumors or cosmetic discussions, but of the warmth and emotion that made Frida Payne unforgettable in the first place. Janet Hubert. For millions of television viewers, Janet Hubert will always be remembered as the original Aunt Viv on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Strong, intelligent, elegant, and fiercely protective of her family, she brought a unique energy to the role that helped shape one of the most beloved sitcoms of the 1990s. But behind the warm smile and commanding screen presence was a woman quietly enduring professional heartbreak and public scrutiny that followed her for decades. After her sudden departure from the show in 1993, rumors and controversy surrounded Janet for years. Hollywood moved on quickly, but she was left carrying emotional wounds from losing a role that had become deeply connected to her identity. When she later returned to television appearances and interviews, some fans noticed visible changes in her face, especially around her forehead and expressions. Speculation about Botox and cosmetic procedures began circulating online, though Janet never made appearance the center of her story. Instead, she spoke openly about pain rejection and the emotional damage caused by the entertainment industry. In interviews, Janet described feeling isolated and misunderstood after leaving the show, while also struggling with the pressures women face as they age in Hollywood. For Black actresses especially, opportunities often become smaller with time, while criticism about appearance grows louder. Yet Janet Hubert's legacy survived because audiences never forgot her presence. Even years later, many fans still consider her version of Aunt Viv irreplaceable because she brought intelligence, dignity, and emotional depth to the role. Perhaps that is the real reason her story continues resonating with people today. Beneath the public rumors and changing appearance was a woman fighting not simply to remain visible, but to reclaim respect in an industry that too often discards women once they stop fitting a perfect image. Faith Evans. Faith Evans entered the music industry during one of the most influential eras in R&B history. With her smooth vocals, emotional songwriting, and natural charisma, she quickly became one of the defining voices of 1990s soul music. Songs like Soon as I Get Home and Love Like This helped establish her career, while her marriage to the notorious B.I.G. placed her at the center of hip-hop history during an emotionally turbulent time. But fame also brought constant public pressure. As the years passed, fans noticed changes in Faith Evans' appearance, including a more polished facial structure and a noticeably refined image compared to her earlier career. Rumors about cosmetic enhancements quietly followed her throughout the 2000s and beyond. Unlike some celebrities who openly discussed surgeries, Faith generally kept those conversations private, choosing instead to focus on music, family, and rebuilding her life after personal tragedy. What often gets overlooked is the emotional weight she carried for decades. After the murder of Biggie in 1997, Faith became not only a grieving widow, but also a public figure, constantly forced to relive painful memories through interviews, documentaries, and media attention. Maintaining a glamorous image while carrying that level of emotional trauma could not have been easy. Still, Faith Evans endured. Her voice remained soulful, mature, and deeply emotional, helping her maintain respect within R&B long after many artists from her era disappeared from mainstream attention. She represented a quieter kind of strength, less flashy than many celebrities, but deeply human. Perhaps that is why longtime fans continue connecting with her today. Behind the polished image and public speculation remained a woman who survived heartbreak pressure and years of public scrutiny, while still holding on to the emotional honesty that made audiences love her music in the first place. Jean Carn. Jean Carn possessed one of the smoothest and most sophisticated voices in soul and jazz music. During the 1970s and 1980s, her rich vocal style helped her stand out in an era filled with extraordinary talent. Songs like Don't Let It Go to Your Head showcased not only technical skill, but emotional elegance that connected deeply with mature audiences. Unlike louder or more dramatic performers, Jean carried herself with calm grace and quiet confidence. As the years passed, however, public conversations increasingly focused on how youthful she continued to appear. Fans often commented on her smooth skin, refined facial features, and seemingly timeless beauty during live performances and interviews. Rumors about cosmetic procedures occasionally followed her appearances, particularly regarding subtle facial enhancements. Yet, Jean rarely responded publicly to speculation, preferring privacy over controversy. What makes her story different from many celebrities is that her image never overshadowed her artistry. She belonged to a generation of performers who built careers through musicianship rather than constant publicity. Even while entertainment culture became increasingly obsessed with youth and appearance, Jean Carn remained respected primarily for the emotional depth of her music. Still, aging in the spotlight creates pressure for every performer, especially women. Audiences often expect artists to remain frozen in time forever, resembling the versions people remember from album covers decades earlier. That expectation can quietly affect even the most graceful celebrities. Yet Jean Carn's legacy survived because of authenticity. Her music carried warmth, maturity, and emotional sincerity that younger generations still discover today. And perhaps that is why many longtime listeners continue admiring her. Not because she appeared ageless, but because her voice never lost the softness and emotional honesty that made her unforgettable from the very beginning. Behind every altered face in Hollywood, there may be a story the cameras never captured. Some of these legends were celebrated by millions, yet privately struggled with pressure, criticism, aging, and impossible beauty standards. From Michael Jackson to Whitney Houston, from Diana Ross to Janet Jackson, their transformations were often judged without compassion. But here's the real question. Did fame force them to change, or did society refuse to accept them as they truly were? Maybe the saddest part isn't the surgeries. Maybe it's how quickly the world forgets the pain behind the smile. Now we want to hear from you. Which celebrity's transformation shocked you the most? And do you think Hollywood treats Black artists unfairly when it comes to beauty and aging? Leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to Remembered Lives channel for more unforgettable stories.